up, we passed out some surveys. And we want your comments on evaluation of this program, because there's no way I know standing up here what you want or what you need in this community. So if you would fill out that survey, and if you're like me, you forget to bring something to write notes on, and so you want to write them on the program, and we used every side of our program. So there's some white paper in the middle of the table if you want to take notes, but please fill out the survey and turn it in. It is so important that we get input from you. What does the community want? I'd like to draw your attention to the last question on the survey. It's about whether you would like to see an adult daycare center in Quitman, which would give caregivers a break so they could make doctor's appointments, run an errand, or just take a minute for themselves. This is a dream, and it would be that caregivers could make appointments for care for the intended one for half a day or a whole day or for 5 days a week. Some caregivers are still trying to work, and it's really scary to go off and leave somebody at home when you don't have any idea what they'll do or what might happen to them. The dementia or Alzheimer's patient would be involved in appropriate activities while they're there. There are no television sets. They would be given lunch and their medications. There would be a nurse on duty for monitoring. And by nature, this would be an expensive program. Now, let me stop you right there if you're getting your hopes up. This is a dream that a few people in this room have. So, but we want to know if you're interested, because if the community's not interested, there's no use pursuing it. Their grants could be gotten for overhead and staffing, but there would still have to be a charge per day, because this would be a very expensive program to do. And if you're not interested, there's no need in us investigating it. So I went and saw a daycare like this, and it was awesome. And if I lived there, I would go volunteer every day just because the vibe was so wonderful. People's judgments were honored. They were given a choice of activities, a choice of food, so they felt like they were a little bit in control of their life. And when you're the only one taking care of somebody and you've got appointments to take and things to do, you can't always give them a choice. You need them to do it right then. And they have no control except their attention. And it's very, very hard. So fill out this questionnaire, what you would like to see done in this community, and what kind of programs you would like in the future. So, yay, we're on duty, and I got it ahead of time. So awesome. We need to draw again. Will our next speaker come draw? See how efficient I am with my time? Okay. Number 0815819. Yay!
Yay, that's exciting. Oh.
Okay. Okay, now we got to calm down again.
No, you don't.
This is Laura Strickland, and she's from the Alzheimer's Association headquarters out of Dallas. And she's going to speak on effective communication strategies. And this is so awesome because, you know, their bodies look the same, but their minds aren't. And it's very hard. And somebody lost their sunglasses. Oh, I have some good new sunglasses. Thank you.
Speaker gift.
No, I got it first.
Thank you. And first of all, I do want to say just an extra special thank you to those that are up in the little room in the little box. So thank you, Sam. Yay! And it's Lexi. Lexi. So here's something special. Everybody turn around and wave at Lexi. Today's her birthday. Woohoo! And this is what she took off from work to come. She's an intern for the Alzheimer's Association. Typically, I wouldn't share everything, but I was a stranger to Lexi, and she shared it with me, so I'm going to share it with y'all because I think it's just ultra special. She's 24 today, but she doesn't know that that's her definite birthday because Lexi was adopted by a family here. She's from India, was born in India, and they adopted her, and so this is the day that they chose to give her, and I just think that's such a treat. So happy birthday, Lexi. And Sam, we've been, you just have to be flexible, and especially when you're talking about any type of dementia, flexibility is the key. So yes, my name is Laura Strickland. I volunteer, as Tammy, with the Alzheimer's Association. I've got about a decade experience working with people living with dementia. The company I work for is called Autumn Leaves, and we have an assisted living community that focuses only on memory care. And that's what I love the most about being able to work there. That's our focus. And we're trying to do a lot of things to help them and to help their family members and just people be able to learn more and more about this disease and how we can continue to offer quality life and dignity to those that are suffering with the disease. Also co-founder, co-owner of a little company called Hope Springs Dementia Training. And I like the focus on the word hope because when you hear about this diagnosis, it's, and I've been close enough to people. Actually, my dad, a couple of years ago, was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, then dementia's mentioned. I don't know if, because as I've watched him over the last few years, I kind of want to say they're wrong, but then so do you, right? So when it's a family member, it's really hard to make yourself get your head around it and to help walk them through it as well. So I think some of what we're going to talk about today with effective communication will give you some tools to help you and help you help the one you love and the one that you're serving. So by the end of today, we really hope that you will take away with you the ability to explain and recognize communication changes that take place throughout the course of the disease, to really understand, the word decode is up there, but the behavioral messages that's delivered by someone that has dementia and really respond in ways that you can be helpful to them, and then to identify the strategies to connect and communicate. That's the good news. To me, that's the hope of what we have to offer. As they go through this disease, yes, their ability to use words and understand words diminishes, but that's not the only way that we have to communicate. And communication is such a key. Lexi, we can move forward, if you don't mind. Thank you. I always say, even in the work, professional field, at home, and friendships, the key to any successful relationship is communication, and to be able to communicate well. That doesn't change with a diagnosis for dementia. And as you learn to communicate with someone through the various stages, then you will be able to navigate it a little bit more peacefully. Let's say it's still going to be hard, but a little more peacefully. Tammy talked about the different stages. And so in relation to communication throughout the disease, in early or mild cognitive impairment, but the mild stage, they can still convey their thoughts and feelings through language. They can use them. You might start seeing a little bit of a difference, but this is really the area where they can kind of hide it from you as well. And I know Tammy was talking about that. When you start seeing them kind of pull away, anything that is out of the usual and out of the norm, you're going to just need to pay attention to that because it could have a definition to it. They can make decisions about their future care. It's going to be critical, and we'll talk about really trying to talk and communicate throughout this stage so that you can make decisions that will help both of you because they can participate in that at this stage. Whoops, back dear. And then they will, in the mild stage, as they progress in it, they may misinterpret what others say, so you want to use some caution. As we go through the moderate stage, then we have to really tone it down to, thank you, you can tell I need that. It doesn't help that I ate 3 of those candies right before I came up. They'll begin to use, you need to use more basic words and basic sentences with them. They're going to rely more on your tone of voice. There's going to be facial expressions. What we're going to talk about is there is a rhythm that they'll be able to connect with you on. And when we learn to take advantage of that, then we learn to understand what they're trying to communicate with us. So that's real key. Continual need to have an emotional connection and meaningful activity. And then in the late stage, may still respond to familiar words. You can't hear me? Excuse me. I think I will. So they may still respond to familiar words, phrases, or songs. This is the hardest part, obviously, but you can still use body language and the 5 senses that we're going to talk about. And to me, this is where the hope really sits. Because as hard as it is and everything that they're not losing their sense of self. They are who they are and have always been. They're unable to communicate. And probably for those of you who may be in this room and you've gotten a diagnosis or your loved one has gotten a diagnosis, this first stage is where you really need to focus for you on getting through the steps that you need to get through. If it's denial, anger, you have to get to that point of accepting that your loved one has this disease. Because it's then and only then you're going to be able to kind of get out of yourself, because a lot's going to be required of you, and offer to them what they really need. So it's a hard thing to do, and you need support to do it. That's why the Alzheimer's Association puts so much into support groups, and I really want you to reach out to them, because the sooner that you can do that, then the sooner they can get the help that they need, and you'll be able to do that. So communicating with them in the early stage, we're going to talk about their difficulty finding the right words, maybe taking longer to speak or respond. The part, and Tammy again mentioned it, withdrawing from conversations and just struggling with making decisions. This is where you have to be very, very patient. This is where you have to give them the opportunity to find it. Don't try to finish the word. Sometimes maybe you want to help prompt because you know what they're trying to say, but let them do what they can do as long as they can do it, because that gives them more of that dignity that they want to hold on to the rest of their life. Can you go back one? Yeah. Is it going to play? Okay. No. So we're still trying to figure out. It played earlier. Which page did you want, dear?
Is important.
Oh, let's listen.
At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
So it's a really key time for you to be able to communicate with them and know, because you've accepted it, you know what's ahead, then you're going to be able to face it a little bit stronger and communicate through it a lot more clearly to be prepared. Things will continue to change, and decisions made during that first time may very well change as you go through it, but at least you'll be able to talk with them. And I know of some people where when they get the ability and they get down to it and they can really take that time and talk through it, it actually brings them closer. Neither of you want this disease to be a reality. Nobody does. Nobody does. But we do find that as you communicate through it, it will bring you closer and help you walk through some things. That's one of the things I've seen with my dad and my mom. You know, my dad was pretty independent. My mom's pretty independent. You know, they've been married now 67 years, I think. But my dad relies on my mom in a different way. And they're both comfortable with it. They're actually stronger in their marriage than we've seen in a long time. And so it's ending up to be a positive thing. Will that happen all the time? I can't say that, but I can say it's a possibility if you choose to communicate through it and try to find out some of these, some of the pieces of information. So you want to be sure and you ask directly. We can go, we'll go through, nope, go back. Sorry, go back. You want to ask directly. When you are talking with someone, if they're in that mid to late, actually early to mid stage, you want to keep your sentences clear and straightforward. Sometimes we want to take the scenic route, telling a story. I get in trouble with that a lot. As a matter of fact, one time my brother, he does it worse than I, but he would not admit that, but he does. And we were in the kitchen, and he was talking to my dad, and he was telling my dad this, and even I was getting lost. And I could see my dad was just sitting there, and God kindly said, "So, David, what's the point? Is it going to come anytime soon?" He kind of caught that cue, and he wrapped it up real succinctly. And that's what you have to do. Don't make their brain have to work to follow something that they used to could follow. And I want to tell you, the thing is, when this disease is, unless it's real early onset, when it's coming, even the normal brain is going to have challenges following certain things, following certain stories, or finding where information has been filed away. That's normal aging to begin with. So when dementia enters the picture, it just gets a lot more complicated. So you just want to use short, succinct conversations. You want to leave plenty of time. If you're in a rush, that's the worst thing you can bring to spending time with someone who is dealing with dementia, because they don't have that speed ability in their thought processes. The brain is dying. It's a hard thing to accept, but it's dying, and there are certain things that are happening in the wiring of the brain that is causing that. So just be patient and recognize that that time will be well spent. It will mean a lot to you in the days, the months, and the years to come. And include them in the conversation. One of the things that my dad cannot stand is if he hears someone talking and he knows he's the subject. Don't do that to them, because that doesn't feel respectful. That makes them feel isolated. Don't talk about them and they're in the room. And don't talk about them and not include them if they're outside the room. You do that in a place that is more private, because that's not going to, you're going to get more combative behavior. They're going to shut down. It's just not respectful either when you think about it. Be careful about making assumptions. We want to make a lot of assumptions about what they can or can't do. The hope in working with someone that has dementia is that we can let them do more than we give them credit for. One of the trainings we've been doing at my company, I love it because it's teaching them that when they begin to struggle to eat, we just take it over. We just take over feeding. We have feeders. Some of you may be feeders. But it's very possible that if you let them engage in that opportunity to feed themselves, they can pick that back up. For 60, 70 years, they've been feeding themselves. What's happening in the brain as it's beginning to die away, they're losing skill. They're not losing strength. So a lot of the skill are found in these first three fingers. And they're losing that as the disease progresses, but they still have strength. So if you can come along with them and help be that piece of their brain that offers the skill, then sometimes it's just like priming the pump. You get them started and they can start feeding themselves again. It won't last forever, but it will last longer. And it will be easier on the caregiver for a while, but it continues to give them that satisfaction and sense that they are taking care of themselves. Be careful about taking over things. Use careful judgment on that, because they can continue. It just may take longer. It may take a little longer, and that's what you have to plan for. So communicate in ways that are more comfortable for them in person. You know, maybe the phone, email in person. The next one, laugh together. I'm just saying, for me, laughter is oxygen, and that is still the part I can still have with my dad. And I may be laughing about the same thing that I laughed about yesterday with him, but I don't care. He still feels that he's laughing with his daughter, and I still feel that I'm laughing with my dad. But as much as you can lighten what's going on, and not making fun of, but just finding humor in some of the things and helping them with that. Your communication, again, this is in the early stage. It'll help you get through that. Some changes in the middle stage. This is where it's going to get harder to find the right words. Tammy talked about word soup. Using just a lot of different words. And again, because the brain is dying, which is a hard thing to say, what happens is, this is the part for you and I, here's the part in the brain where the word is that we're looking for. Now, it may be hard for us to find it, but usually, because we're older too, remember? But usually, we'll find it somewhere in this area, okay? We can find it. It just might take a couple of seconds or something, but for them, they're going all the way out here because they can't find that word. And they're trying things, and it doesn't make sense, and you can't figure out what that word is. Or something will pop up here, or something will pop up there. You just be patient with them. Be patient and look to what they're trying to describe. You know, you can get some semblance of understanding with it, but just expect for that to happen. Using familiar words repeatedly. So because it's hard for them to use or find new words or hold on to new words, they want to keep using familiar words. And that's a good thing. They may even invent new words to describe familiar things. So it might give you a whole new language that you get to use with your kids and grandkids, right? They may talk less frequently, because this is when you're starting to see that their words are going away. So everybody find the left side of your, this is the temporal lobe. You have the left side and the right side. So I want everybody to put their hands up on temporal lobes, okay? And just kind of go with me. Left, right, left, right. I don't hear you. Left, right, left, right. I don't hear you. Left, right, left, right. Now follow me. Language, rhythm, language, rhythm, language, rhythm, language, rhythm. Okay? They lose language first. And that's where it's coming from. They lose language first. But what they keep, with one exception on the language, what they keep on the right side is that rhythm. So, rhythm, music, unfortunately, cursing. Tammy talked about the filter and how we start seeing that they lose that. That's what's happening. So it's not that they become this trashy mouth person. You know, there's a lot of things that we've heard in our corporate lives or family lives, but we're good old men and women. We don't say those things out loud because you still have a filter. They don't, but they're in there. So you have to recognize that that is going to impact as they move into that later stage. It's going to impact some of the words that you may hear. Don't react. Give them that space. Give them the opportunity to experience what they're experiencing. If you see from that mild stage and you see significant behavior change, then that's when you need to consult your doctor, because the person's moving through that stage. Go ahead.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them and their process.
Who enjoyed that? So let me tell you something. I learned something not too long ago. We've all heard the word cortisol, right? Cortisol gets dumped into your system, and it really whacks your brain out a little bit. It adds that belly fat. So cortisol is usually a result of stress. Well, it's stressful when you're trying to care for someone who has Alzheimer's, who has some form of dementia. So what happens, and again, we saw the hippocampus on Tammy's slides, right? Well, inside the hippocampus is what's called the amygdala, and it's shaped kind of like a sort of a pie. But what the hippocampus is, that's your fright, flight, fight syndrome. So when you get startled like that, you want to flight. So the fright, then you want to flight. You want to head out of there. And then, if you stay long enough, you're ready to fight, okay? Because that's just what the body systems are to protect ourselves. But when that system is engaged, that's when the cortisol gets dumped into your system. You're going to make the worst decisions. It takes about 20 minutes for it to get through your system. But one of the things you can do when that happens is you can deep breathe. You can breathe in. Do that with me. And breathe out. Whether you want to or not, you came today. Do it with me. Breathe in. Breathe out. Taking those deep breaths can help dissipate that cortisol and get it through your system. I've learned that because I've been, now I don't get to really say I'm East Texas. Y'all tell me. I live in Kemp. Is that kind of East Texas? Did someone say yeah? Yay! Okay, so I'm from East Texas too. And I've lived here about 6 years, and I have a little farm, and I've had to learn this with calves and with cows. You know, I've noticed, my friends tell me my little dogs are like me. I'm a reactive person. Something happens and I'm like, yeah, I get more excited than most people. Something negative happens, I get more sad than most people because I'm a very reactive person. And when I learn this, and I've seen that I don't make great decisions. So what's going to happen as that loved one or the person that you are caring for goes through this process of dementia, you're going to walk in on circumstances. You're going to hear something fly out of mom's mouth in front of the grandkids that you barely ever heard her say, and you're going to have to take those deep breaths. You don't need to react. It's the disease. It's just the disease, and you have to be able to see that. You're going to have to let go of worrying about protecting your reputation or even her reputation. And not everybody is as blatant as others, but some are. We've had pastors, and we know how much they served God and the impact they had in the community. And now through this disease, they're throwing out some words that are just, who knew? And it's not that he was not a real pastor. Again, you live in this society that people use a lot of different words, but you make the choice to leave them alone. You make the choice to go away from them, but that's called using your filter. So you're going to see that. So don't react. You may walk in and dad's using mom's hairbrush to brush his teeth. Yeah, don't run in there. Dad, that's a hairbrush. Why are you using a hairbrush to brush your teeth? Well, he doesn't know it's a hairbrush. He thinks it's a real nice toothbrush. And what you will learn as you continue to learn going through things is you always want to use substitution, not subtraction. What you want to avoid is as minimal combative situations as you can. So you want to use substitution, not subtraction. Don't go in there and rip the hairbrush out and say, Dad, that's just the craziest thing I've seen. Use a real toothbrush. And he's thinking, you're crazy. So what you want to do is just kind of get his attention. Dad, hey, you're brushing your teeth, huh? Well, look what I have, and you need to have it. You need to plan for it. Look at this toothbrush, Dad. It's smaller. I think you're going to like it better. And he'll put it down. Don't grab it, because then he's going to think you want the real nice toothbrush, and you're giving him the cheap one. We don't want that, okay? So you have to learn in your communication, and that principle of substitution, not subtraction. If they are doing some behavior that you need to move them into another room or something, the same thing. You never want to go grab them or shame them. It's just going to cause them to feel worse, and you just have to accept their brain is dying, and that's the disease. And that's what comes with it. But as you learn those communications, as you take your time, as you work to respond and not react, you're going to see that your relationship is going to be better. Never perfect. The disease doesn't offer us perfect, but you can still hold on all the way through the end to some very special moments, and you can minimize that combative behavior if you begin to work with them and not to them. Okay, and we probably will talk about that a little bit more. We can go to the next.
She could sense my frustration, because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, you know, she was very old school, and she's like, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
Yeah, I was watching a training, and it showed where the mother had asked a repetitive question. And so she goes up to the daughter and she said, well, did I tell you about? And the daughter said, yes, she did. Well, then she got all combative. And one of the things they said is, when you want to try not to lie, you want to. None of us really want to be liars. But I have some thoughts on that when you're thinking about living their reality. But one of the things you can say is, tell me about it. And you know what? She'll tell it all over again. And what you have to learn to love is seeing the joy in their face and in their moment when they get to tell it again and again and again, again and again. Now, you can get to the point that, again, substitution, not subtraction. When mom's gone over the story, let's say, 5, 6 reasonable times, 10, that's when you, again, substitute. Tell me about it as we go, and maybe there's a craft thing that she can do, or maybe there's something else that she can do, and you get her engaged in another activity that you know she likes, but you've done it without any combativeness. She hasn't